From the chance coming together of Swansea Jack, Ronnie, and Ponty Girl Jean in the 50s, we've seen the birth of 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. I hope one day that some of them might decide to add to the story. In the mid-2000s, I met Suzanne, Jamie settled down with Clare Foot, and Kerry with Jenny Lang. Dad had the tendency to ask questions of people to see if he had any links with them. He often did, but if he didn't, he'd keep going and ask more distant questions. Did you have an uncle, Charlie, who worked in the IMI in 1974? That sort of random probing. When he met Clare for the first time, it didn't take him long to work out that his mother and her great-grandmother, Mary Owens, nee Thomas, were sisters. Quickly joining the dots, he clicked that his cousin Glenys was Clare's nan. 23rd of April. Mrs. Dirk was 77 2 days ago. I dropped her card and royal wedding mug, plate and flags up to her at 9 a.m. and she was delighted. 15th of September. Grandchild number 1, baby Cameron, was born today. Jenny had to have an emergency cesarean as he was getting a bit short of oxygen, but other than that, mother and baby were fine. Kerry texted me at 3:15 a.m. This is a flipping nightmare. Language modified. Jen is in the middle of having an emergency cesarean and I'm stuck in the delivery room on my own. Not allowed to see Jen, just got to wait. Poor Jen, it's horrible. Then, a bit later, little Cameron entered the world at 3:13 a.m, weighing 7 pounds 1.5 ounces. He's a little stunner and he's got Jen's dimpled chin. Very proud is an understatement. Bought Cam his first cricket bat at 9 a.m. from H Sports in Sketty. In fact, the owner Matthew opened early for me before calling to see Mum and Dad and collecting Suzanne from her training course at the Scout Hut and heading for Singleton. 3rd of January 2012. Just after 1 o'clock, Mum rang, tearful, to ask if I could take Dad to hospital as the ambulance, so Dr. Jarvis said, would take too long. I left immediately. When I got to the house, Mam went upstairs to the toilet and Dad was standing in the living room just inside the door. He looked so lost. I hugged him and a knot of emotion choked me for a second. Mam came down as Carol arrived. She did not know where to put herself. Dad sat on the settee as tears welled up and I can't remember what he said, but he was just worried about Mam. He lives his life through her. I hurried him up a bit, rang Dr. Jarvis to say he was on his way to hospital, took the letter from her, hugged Mam, choked up again, then Carol, telling her he would be all right. Got there, straight into a bed in assessment room 2. Within 30 to 40 minutes, he had blood taken, ECG done, and blood pressure. Plus a cuppa from a very chatty nurse from Port Talbot. I'm not very good at tea, she said. Don't worry, love, I'll tell you if it's horrible, he replied. Of course, it wasn't. In fact, it was the best tea he'd ever tasted. Beautiful, he said. Left him there while he was waiting for the doctor, then went to see Mam. Paul and Carol were there with her. Later, back at the hospital, as I arrived, an old bloke was wheeled into the next bed. I knows him, used to drink with him years ago, Dad said. I was glad to see him munching away on a turkey dinner. He ate half of it, missed out the soup and cleaned away the apple crumble and custard in no time. He was much more relaxed. Minutes later, he was whisked away by a smiley porter for an x-ray. As he left, a man turned up, introduced himself as Clive, and asked where Dad was. I explained. It was Dr. Weston, and a little while before, Dad was saying that he was a friend of Uncle Derek. I mentioned this, and he spoke with real affection and admiration for Uncle Derek, who had received a heart transplant in 1979, hence the connection. His plan was clear. Heart tablets to ease the strain. Damn, said Dad. I was afraid of that. Confused, I asked him to explain. They're making me take tablets, he said. He was 79 and had avoided drugs all his life.